All right. So I started my first business in the first quarter of 1995, and this was an internet company. If you think about the timing, in so many ways, that was the beginning of the commercial internet. For most humans, the internet did not exist. And so shortly after Netscape launched that commercial web browser, we started our first internet company. And it was an incredibly exciting time. My business partners and I were incredibly convicted. We believed that the internet was going to change everything. But at that moment, a lot of people around me, my friends, my business peers, and even executives and mentors that I had a lot of respect for said the internet is a fad. People did not see the same things that we were seeing. So we had this conviction to build something when others really didn't believe there was much opportunity there. So what that led to for us was this unbelievably energizing period where we felt like we were out in front of a trend that was going to change the world. So day-to-day life was exciting, but the reality of that first business was more defined by struggle than by almost anything else. Because day to day, even though in hindsight I can think about how exciting it was, day to day we were working 80-hour plus weeks. We were falling asleep on the floor in the office when we had big projects due. It was really difficult. And personally, my wife and I, we were living in a one-bedroom apartment. We had this incredibly small table that served as our dining room in the evenings and my desk during the day where I was working. My wife was working 2 to 3 jobs just so we had enough money to pay our bills. We were eating peanut butter and jelly sandwiches 2 to 3 nights a week. And I remember my wife would always make the chocolate milk that you mixed up because we couldn't afford the pre-made chocolate milk. And that was really what day-to-day life felt like. And in a moment, and in an instant, all that struggle and all the things that we were doing changed. And that's when we sold our business. It was May of 1998. That business was sold. And I went from enormous struggle to kind of immediate success. And we went from a one-bedroom apartment to this beautiful home that we were able to pay cash for. And all of the goals and dreams that I imagined as a teenager, the sports car I always wanted, I was able to go buy it. And we were able to check off a lot of those kind of financial dreams at a very young age. I was 28 years old when I had my first 8-figure exit. And more success followed. In a pretty short period of time, I was able to start, scale up, and exit my second business. So in July of 2000, when I sold that second company, I still hadn't turned 30 years old and I had had 2 8-figure exits. So it was really an incredible time. And in so many ways, I'll never forget July of 2000 because not only was it my second exit and celebrating all of what that meant, feeling like this entrepreneur, I was on top of the world. I was being interviewed by all the major media outlets, CNN, the Wall Street Journal, USA Today, New York Times. They were all sort of looking at us as these internet entrepreneurs doing things out on the cutting edge. But I was also just a few weeks away from my first daughter being born. And I was so incredibly excited to be a father. And at that moment, I started to imagine life as a father. And it's something I was always excited about. And I started, seeing it very clearly. I was going to be home for dinner every night, 5 o'clock. I was going to coach the soccer team. I was going to be the dad that was at the school plays at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And I was going to be there for all of those moments. And that's when the doubt sort of crept in. And all of the doubt came from people around me, people I respected. Again, peers and mentors, my friends, they all were almost laughing, saying, are you crazy? You're a workaholic. You work 80-hour weeks. You're standing in line at the coffee shop at 5:30 in the morning for your first cup of coffee. You can't possibly be home at 5 o'clock. Like, how could you do that? And for the first time in my life, I think I was probably clinically depressed. I was really struggling with this desire to be a dad who was present and there for all those moments that I could see so clearly in my mind. But my identity was this entrepreneur who built companies and was out doing deals and really trying to be innovative. And everyone was telling me, you just have to choose. You have to decide, are you going to be that type of father, or are you going to be an entrepreneur that scales and innovates and tries to impact the world? You can't do both. And so it was a very depressing period of my life. And about a week before my daughter was born, I leaned down to my wife's belly and I told my soon to be born daughter that I didn't know how, but I made a commitment. I said, I'm going to try to be there for everything, every moment. And in so many ways, that's when everything changed for me. Life really shifted because when everyone was telling me I had to choose option one, become a stay-at-home dad effectively that was there for all the moments, but not really build those innovative companies anymore, or option two, continue to be an entrepreneur that builds these great businesses and scales companies, but I was going to have to sacrifice some of the time with my daughter. I made a decision that I was unwilling to accept those trade-offs. And I chose option three, which is I don't know how, but I'm going to do both. And the reason it's such a relevant and important story is because that was August of 2000. She was born the 21st of August. Almost exactly 2 years to the day later, 2 years, almost 19 years to the day later, I was standing at NYU about to drop this little girl off for her freshman year of college. And I could look at her in the eye and say, I wasn't the perfect dad. Of course, I made mistakes, but I know I was there for everything. I carved the pumpkins. I coached the teams. I saw the first steps. I heard the first words. I didn't miss a moment. But over those 19 years, the other thing that happened is I built and sold 4 more companies. I pulled my daughters. I had 2 girls. I pulled my daughters out of school and I traveled the world. We moved abroad. All of those moments were possible because I was building my companies and I was home for dinner at 5 o'clock. And choosing option 3, which is I'm going to do both, was the most important decision of my life. And that's exactly what I help other entrepreneurs do today.